We're live.
Welcome. Welcome, everybody. I see the numbers going up, which means people are coming into the room. That's an exciting time for me every day. So welcome. Welcome. As you come in, if you would put your name in the chat, and hi, Tammy, and do what Tammy did and say that it's coming to all panelists and attendees, not just to the panelists. And we're setting ourselves up for the future because the chat is a very active part of these webinars. So if you set your chat to all panelists and attendees instead of just all panelists, that would be great. So hi Asante, hi Rocio, hi Tasha, hi Ashley, hi Joy. All of you need to set it to all panelists and attendees. Just a reminder. Great, Wanda, thank you, from Chicago. Yes. And I am going to butcher your name. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Rania, or Renia, welcome. Hello, Elda, nice to see you again. And Lisa from Missouri, Christina, good afternoon. Hi, Catherine from Seattle, and Rania, yes, Rania, good. Maxine from New Jersey, welcome. See some familiar names. I would love to see your faces. I really wish I could see your faces. Hi, Donna from Mesa, Arizona, and Anne Marie from Aurora. Hi, Yolanda from Chicago, and Janess from New Hampshire. Hi, Andrea from New Mexico. Sherry from Chicago Commons, our friends at Chicago Commons. Hi, Cindy from South Africa. We're tickled that you join us. We're just delighted. Hi, Rosa from Joliet. Imani from Washington, D.C., Leah from Michigan. Hi, Cynthia from Dallas, and Victoria from Wichita. And now it's 12 o'clock and we're going to get started. I'm Katthe Wolf. I'm President and CEO of Be Strong Families, and I'm your co-host today for, I don't know which number it is of our webinar series, Staying Strong and Positive for Ourselves and Our Children. But I'm delighted to be here today with Marisol Salinas, who is going to be leading us in a webinar called Remembering Your Joy, a framework for creating a radical self-care practice. And I'm just so looking forward to being with the energy of joy today. So let's go to just remind ourselves how we interact. There are two ways. One is the chat, and that's why I was kind of encouraging you all to direct your comments to all panelists and attendees, because other people in the room are really disappointed when I read a comment and it's only, you know, they can't see it. So the chat, we use it very actively. I'll be monitoring it for Marisol, and we will get to as many people as we can. Questions are always welcome. Comments are always welcome. The other way to do this is, the other way to interact or to engage is by raising your hand. And when you raise your hand, then Dee, well, I want to acknowledge Dee Yin is here from Be Strong Families. She's like making sure that everything goes smoothly technologically, and she'll be posting links in the chat. And she is also the one who will unmute you and allow you to speak. So before we get started, we just do our agreements. We do this, Be Strong Families has agreements for everything we do, whether it's a webinar or it's a cafe or it's a workshop, anything we do, we have agreements. And this is an acknowledgement that we co-create this space together, and that all of us are part of keeping it safe and keeping it a good experience and a learning experience for everybody. So if you agree to these agreements, do what our regulars are doing and write in the chat, I agree. And Tammy says, I appreciate that you read the comments, but I like to read along. It helps me process them more easily, and I don't like to miss anything. Yep, I think that's why we ask you to direct your comments to all panelists and attendees. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton over to Marisol, and we'll start finding our joy.
All right. Thank you, Katthe and Dee, for being here with me and supporting the back end tech-wise. Again, my name is Marisol Salinas, and I am here to talk about remembering your joy and bringing it into your self-care practice. A little bit about myself. I serve as the Director of Student Affairs at Southwest School of Art, an independent art college in San Antonio, Texas. And part of that role is basically overseeing student support and wellness programming. I am also a private coach where I work with people one-on-one in all areas of life, including finding their joy in everyday life. And so to start off, I want us to talk about self-care. And as Katthe said, I am going to want plenty of engagement during today's webinar. So include in the chat your ideas. Raise your hand as needed. I want this to be kind of a collaborative webinar. So in looking at self-care, I think all of us have a picture in our mind of what that looks like. And so I'm just curious from the attendees, what is self-care to you? What do you do to take care of yourself? And so if you'll just put that in the chat, or if anybody wants to chime in.
They're thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. So while they're thinking, getting enough sleep, Autumn says getting enough sleep. Carolyn says take time for personal time out. Tandra says rest when needed. Monica, not there yet. Deborah, walks. Janesse says I do some yoga and I walk. Daisy says naps. Lisa, listen to music, sit in sun, resting when needed, time out. Anne Marie says getting outside to enjoy nature. Rocio says self-care is mental, physical, and emotional health. Time for myself, Rosa says. Wanda, I listen to soft music and outdoor walks. Rocio, I do exercise and pamper myself every day. Victoria, I lay in bed and relax. I go to the gym. I go to this place that sells nutritional shakes and they're really good. Tracy says, I separate from work. Since working from home on Friday, I put away all material and equipment. Since I'm working from home on Friday, I put away all material and equipment so that to make a separation between work and home. Christina says, being aware of what I need and want, and then using daily practices like exercise, dance, laugh, read, spend time with friends, volunteer, learning. Ramona says, maintaining overall well-being, mental, spiritual, and physical is what self-care means to her. Cindy says, I schedule me time. Tracy, gratitude, prayer. Donald says, meditate. Elizabeth, listen to music, breathing. Catherine, eating nutritious food, staying hydrated, taking care of my body. Yolanda, I have a devotional time in the morning to pray and meditate. Autumn, keeping boundaries with work. Cynthia says, take breaks from work when needed. Imani says, self-care to me is prioritizing my wellness. I take walks on the nature trail. Elda, rest when needed, walk on a regular basis, and listening to music. Andrea says, I've been doing arts and crafts. Maria says, time for me, walking and exercising. Mary, meditate and pray, play with my animals, power naps. This is a great question, Mark.
I know.
There's so many answers.
I love
chat.
I love seeing this, and I'm really impressed by a lot of our attendees today who have some great self-care practices. I do see some people in there who are still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, Gordy says she's still trying to figure it out. Pamela says crochet. Destiny, just relax, watching my favorite TV shows. Tammy says I use reading, meditation, getting plenty of sleep and nature. I know that I need to take care of my own mental health in order to continue serving families in this capacity. If I forget about myself, I'll get burned out. And Donna says Native American beadwork with flute music. Ooh, I want to come do that with you. Tandra says learning to say no. Ramona says, read my Bible, talk to God, sit outside to hear the birds and smell fresh air, look at clouds, just admire all of God's wonderful creations, including other humans. Sherry says, I make time for me, sewing, exercising, listening to music, reading books. And Kay Bookard says, sit in total quietness. Rosa says, I listen to music, praying, talking with my daughter. I'm sorry, not doctor. I saw daughter and doctor came out. I don't know why. Lori says, trying to learn more about what I can do to take care of myself, which is something I did not do in the past. Now putting it in practice by making the time for me.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we've gotten self-care, and if you guys want to keep putting ideas in there, I love to see those come through. It seems like people have a pretty good idea of what self-care. Somebody commented that it's mental, physical, and emotional, and that kind of hits it on target. I think a lot of times when we hear self-care, we're thinking of going to the gym, which is awesome. We need to take care of our bodies, or I'm going to get a massage, or some sort of extra stuff that we add into our life. And yes, those can be amazing self-care practices. I want to point out that those are not the most important or the only ways to engage in self-care. That really, self-care is about caring for all aspects of yourself. And there's so many aspects of us. And I think another tricky thing that comes up with exploring what self-care is and if we create a self-care practice is a lot of times self-care involves paying for something, paying to access something, paying somebody else to help us with that. And while that can be useful and very helpful, I think that's also a roadblock sometimes for people to think self-care only means if I can get myself a weekly massage, or if I can go to the spa to relax, if I can, it's bigger and broader. And really self-care can be very, very simple. Next slide, please. And so you might be wondering why I picked joy, why remembering joy as a framework for self-care. And research has shown that joy is really good for your body. Regularly experiencing joy actually produces healthy changes. Those include strengthening your immune system. So right now, in the middle of a pandemic, if you can experience more joy, you'll boost your immune system. It helps with energy. It can diminish your experience of pain, anxiety, and depression. It's not a cure, but it can help. It can protect you from damaging effects of stress. I think everybody is under an enormous amount of stress right now. So bringing joy into your life helps with that. And it can actually increase your ability to sleep restfully through the night. I know that is coming up, at least for people that I have spoken with. Sleep issues have been, happening. What's really neat about joy and by default happiness is that we're all born with the ability to feel joy. So the idea that self-care is out of our reach is not true if we are using joy in there. And we can also express joy independent of whatever else we may be experiencing. So if we are having a tough day, if we are sick, if we just feel really overwhelmed, we still have the natural capacity to experience joy while still having those things happen. So this is why our framework is going to revolve around joy. I hope that all of us get more joy, especially in these chaotic times. So let's see, moving forward, Dee, please. Now, the framework that I'm going to introduce is something that stems from my own personal self-care practice. I personally have some practices that include doing yoga, riding my spin bike, going into my garden. However, I am also the type of person that gets bored very easily, and creating something regular that I end up feeling obligated or like I have to do this self-care practice, which really defeats the point. I've worked with clients who, that's the thing, they have self-care practices, but then it becomes more of a chore rather than something that brings us relaxation and joy. And so this framework is something that I have used personally. And at the beginning of COVID-19, in speaking to a couple of friends and colleagues, I was hearing, very similar comments of, I have these self-care practices, but I'm so stressed, I'm not doing them, or they're not working, like it's not working, I can't do it. And so I was like, hey, this is what I do, try it. And then shared it with clients, and people have seemed to enjoy. So the first thing, it's not really steps, they're almost like categories. And the first category or theme, if you will, is something you love. And so the simplest of joys can often come, it brings us great pleasure in a short amount of time. Sometimes it's something very simple. Yet we often forget to devote time to things that we love. And for some people, they may even struggle with, what is something I love? Like, what is that? And you might be able to come up with some things off the top of your head, but I invite you in remembering joy, right? It's not just what pops up initially, although it can, is to ask yourself what you love that hasn't been part of your life recently. And so I've put some little bullet points up there. I think a great place to start is to think of your childhood. What was fun for you when you were a kid? And if you guys want to start typing things into the chat, I would love to see what comes up for you. Any games? If you have a favorite song, movie, so kind of think outside the box.
So we're asking ourselves to find something that we love that really hasn't been very much a part of your life recently. So you're finding something, and you can look in these other places like childhood games, those are prompts, but you're really looking for something that you haven't thought about in a while. Right?
Yes.
You're thinking about something that you haven't thought about in a while and you haven't been doing. So it's not something you have been doing, it's something you haven't been doing, but that you remember that you really loved it when you did it last time. Good.
Exactly.
We had some reading and drawing, road trips, old school music from the 70s and 80s, double Dutch jump rope, biking, swimming, sun tanning. Maria says enjoying nature and playing under the rain. Lori says playing games outside. Ramona, drawing still life. Elizabeth, crafts, hanging out with friends, reading. Remember to put it to all panelists and attendees, please, everybody. Catherine, swinging at the park. Oh, yeah, dancing. Riding my four-wheeler and camping, Shannon says. Yamuna says reading. Janesse, climbing a tree and reading. Oh, I remember climbing trees. That was really fun back in the day. Playing games, Daisy says. Bianca, play hide and seek. John says fishing. Donna, Barbies and G.I. Joes all set up in the front yard with all the neighbor kids. Ramona, playing semi-pro football. Tiffany, I love to play Uno with my great-grandma, passed away years ago, but playing that game always makes me smile. Hilda, Chinese jump rope, or Chinese rope. Cynthia, pogo stick and Pac-Man. Christina, running in the rain and playing board games. Victoria, watching movies and listening to music. Elda says, spending time with my mom, enjoying nature, walking outside. Wanda, sitting at the lakefront in the evening, watching the sun go down. Anne-Marie says, dancing. Imani, beadwork, going to concerts, dancing. Mary Slater, I love riding my bike. I actually just ordered myself a bike. I've not rode a bike in over 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Says hiking and knitting. Tracy, making tents out of blankets. Oh, we're going childhood here, right? Cindy, singing and playing in the rain, reading stories aloud. Virginia, spending time outside at night. Whippoorwills and lightning bugs are awesome. Vera, riding my bike and camping. Sylvia, exercise, arts and crafts, and walking.
Oh, these are awesome.
They are awesome.
They are awesome. Okay, you guys can continue to add in there as you will. And so as you see, this first sort of theme is something you love that you haven't done in a long time. And I would bet money that as these ideas came to you, a smile probably came to your face, or you're like, oh, I had a little feeling of, wow, I remember that. And this first little part is just infusing you with a little bit of joy. let's move to the next theme. The next little chunk is pick your favorite time of day. So some people love the early hours, some people love late nights, somebody might like the middle of the day. I want you to reflect on what time of day you enjoy the most. Now, don't confuse this with the time of day that you find yourself to be most productive. I think a lot of times that's where we move, like, oh, I'm really productive at this time of day. I want you to think if there is a time of day that you just, for some reason, do enjoy.
I just had an aha moment, Marisol.
Yeah.
Like, I always think I do like walking in the morning and seeing the sunrise. I'm very productive in the morning. I'm a morning person. And I think of myself as not a night person, right? And I think of myself like as being good for nothing at the hours between like 3, 4, 5, twilight. But actually, twilight is my favorite time of day. I used to have great memories of sitting on the porch, kind of watching the sun go down, relaxing, having my grandparents like used to have a smile, which I guess is they call it a smile, but it's actually a drink, on the porch. And that's actually my favorite time of day is that twilight, but it's not the time when I'm the most productive.
Exactly. And so we have to kind of switch our thinking because I think we're accustomed to being productive and getting things done. And a lot of times with self-care, it's taking that step back and not worrying about being productive, but allowing ourselves to relax, to rest. And that can be very different. So I'm glad you shared that. And some people may not yet know if they have a favorite time of day. It's very possible that.
Oh, sorry.
It's very possible that's never been something you've even thought about. Mm-hmm. And so with this framework, you'll get to try a couple of different things and see what comes up, what works.
And I'm noticing in the chat, there's a lot of people talking about sunset or sunrise, that the dusk or the dawn. Yeah. And somebody says in the middle of the night when it's quiet. And I know those people that well, Cindy just said, I love evenings. I totally adore taking evening walks. I feel serene. But there was somebody on here that was like midnight. And I know people like that in the middle of the night, they just love being awake when everybody's asleep because it feels peaceful. Yeah. And I'm wondering if peace is connected to joy for you.
Oh, I think it can be. Yes. I think when we are in a place of happiness and when I say happiness, it's not in this moment I'm happy, but like a very pure, authentic feeling of joy and happiness. It does offer a sense of peace, a sense of relaxation. And I think that's how science has shown that it helps us relieve stress and anxiety and depression, because that feeling allows for us to kind of calm and center, whether or not we realize it or whether or not that's our goal.
So I want to just point a comment out in the chat, Marisol, because Rosa is, and thank you, Rosa, for being vulnerable. She says, I'm not very good to myself. I really don't know how to be happy. So I just thought maybe that I don't know how to be happy.
Yeah.
Might be something you might want to respond to as a coach.
Yeah. And so thank you, Rosa, for pointing that out. That's very brave of you to share that. And I think sometimes our challenge is we have an idea of what it means to be happy, right? We see other things we see in media and movies, and it's kind of like this picture perfect idea of what happiness is. And really, happiness is a very personal, unique, individual experience. And so my sense of happiness, somebody might think like, oh, her life is miserable, it's awful. And to me, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy, And so I think part of this framework and this practice that you will see when we tie it all together is really to help you remember, because it's in there somewhere. I am confident, 100% sure that at some time you have experienced happiness, true, real, authentic happiness.
So there's also, Marisol, I'm remembering something that a spiritual teacher once taught me, which is that happiness and joy and contentment and peace, those are like lasting things that we have within us that we can tap and find.
Yes.
The feeling of being happy, like, is a fleeting thing that isn't sustained. So happy is kind of fleeting, but contentment and joy and happiness are like things we carry. We
Exactly.
carry with us, you know?
Exactly. And so part of this radical approach to self-care will show you how to tap into joy at any time without having to, rely on, I have to schedule my spin class and go there. Where you will, which I do that when I can, but that's not really the most important, right?
I love that, Marisol. And I'll tell you one more thing why I love that, because I had all these things that I used to do before COVID-19. Like I did go for massages, and I did go for pedicures, and I really thought of those as being my self-care. Like, and I was a little worried, like going to King Spa, which is kind of a spa place. I was really worried that I was going to get depressed because I didn't have access to all those things, but it didn't happen. And so that was really one of the cool things for me, is just like you're saying, that I realized that, okay, so those are things I do that I enjoy and that are pleasurable, but that's not my self-care.
Exactly.
That my self-care is really what you're talking about. It's being able to tap into joy and find simple things that
Exactly.
delight me. So
Exactly.
I just want to 100%. That was one of the findings for me with this whole COVID-19 shelter in place.
Okay, so we've looked at things that we remember that we love. We're exploring our favorite time of day. If we can move to the next slide, please. This is a big one. Something you keep to yourself. So I would say many of us at different times, I am guilty of this 100%, hold ourselves back from doing things we desire because of fear of being judged or criticized or rejected, right? That can feel scary. We have these ideas and we're like, oh, this would be awesome. And then this little thing in the back of our head starts questioning, right? We start to judge it. We do not want to do this, okay? Making decisions based on what others think is giving away your power and is not honoring your authentic self. So I will say that being your authentic self is going to bring you joy, right? We need to practice showing up authentically and from a place of desire. That is going to allow us to have more joy in our life and boost our confidence. And when we're feeling more confidence, we have more joy. It's taking care of ourselves. Now, this one can be, I've had clients struggle with this because it's like there's so much potential. It's scary, right? To do things if you're worried about what other people will think. So in terms of self-care, I would invite you to kind of reframe some things. I know I have done this myself where I'm like, oh, I can't do this self-care thing because of whatever reason. I don't have the money to spend $20 for each exercise class to go to, or my schedule's so busy, I can't make those yoga classes at the studio, right? I think there's a lot of can'ts, like this is why I can't do self-care. And if we reframe it and look at how can I, then we have a lot more ideas come up. So for example, I love spin class. I did it for a long time, financially, it wasn't making sense for me to pay that amount when I have a spin bike in my house. So I stopped that and thought, how can I do this on my own? And so it's a much less investment to pay for an app to get the class, you know, something like that's just one little example. But thinking of how can I do these things for myself that I might be scared that other people will judge me. How can I do it? I think we also have a lot of what ifs, right? Well, I want to do this thing, but what if? What if, you know, my friends think it's silly that I want to have a picnic, you know? So in this area, it's, again, very personalized and very unique of something that you desire, that you want to do, or that you have an idea for, even if it's not fully formed, that maybe you've been keeping to yourself. And if anybody's brave enough to share that with us, I would love to see.
So you're looking for somebody to raise their hand now, right?
Yeah.
And really tell us a story about your own life, where you've reframed the I can't into the how can I? Is that?
Yeah, or something that you've stopped yourself from doing that you would love to try, love to do, because it, you know, because of maybe any fears you have around it.
I'm just going to let silence for a little bit and see if somebody shows up. If not, I'm gonna give my experience again. So I have one. I'll just share from. Oh, here, Catherine says, I've been writing poetry for 20 years, but rarely share it out of self-consciousness. Tammy says, I feel like this is getting easier as I get older. It takes practice. I think one for me is like, when you said practice showing up authentically and from a place of desire. So when what you desire feels initially like it's not in your control. So say I want to feel loved, you know, by someone else. You know, I want to, if I'm single, I want a partner, or if I'm married and I'm not feeling, you know, the level of love coming from the other person, you know, that I want. So I want to feel loved. And I might have a belief about that, like I can't feel loved unless this other person gives me the love, you know, like
yeah,
so
that's very common.
I can't feel loved if nobody loves me, you know. How do I feel loved? So when I was thinking about that, I was thinking, applying that how can I question, like how can I feel loved? And a bunch of ideas cascaded in for me, because I was like,
Yeah.
I really need to love myself. Like, how can I feel loved by me, feel worthy of love? And then also, there's a lot of, how can I accept the love that's around me, that people are giving me? It might not show up in exactly the form that I wanted, you know, but how can I accept the love that is there, you know?
Yeah.
And so I know that's what came for me.
Yeah, that's a great example. I have one similar where years and years ago, I used to love to receive flowers. My husband would bring me flowers all the time. And at some point, we just got out of that practice. And I was having this desire of like, I wish, and it was almost like a fussy, you know, like I'm going to be fussy. I wish that he would bring me flowers, or somebody would give me flowers. And one day I was at the grocery store and was like, I see the beautiful flowers. Buy yourself your own damn flowers. And then that became a self-care practice for me. We alternate grocery shopping. So I did only go to the store every 2 weeks. And so every 2 weeks I would put together this beautiful bouquet of flowers, and it brought me so much joy, and they're beautiful, and they, you know, and I was able to, what I desired, I was able to provide for myself.
Nice. Donna said she worked really hard after 30 years of no schooling and finally got my degree at the age of 50. I think that's one that a lot of us can resonate with.
Excellent.
You think you're supposed to complete your degree by the time you're 22, and if you haven't, then, or 25 or 30, but if you haven't, and it's always been niggling in the back of your mind, like I should be getting, you know, I wish I had done that. I wish I'd gotten a PhD.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for myself, you know, going back to get a PhD at 55 years of age, like, you know, it's that whole, but not worrying about what others think and just
Not
doing
worrying.
it, you know?
Yeah.
Jeanette says, I love to write, but I'm embarrassed and feel incompetent compared to others. So she doesn't. She keeps it to herself. Mary says, I'm pretty much uninhibited on a daily basis. I often break out in song and dance in random places and often make my friends and loved ones shake their heads. Oh, Mary, I want to.
Awesome. I'm like, can we be friends?
Yeah, let's be friends. Imani says, learning how to play an instrument, going back to school, taking sewing lessons. Nice. I'd like to take
Awesome.
And Lori says, congrats, Donna. Those of us who have more life experience can't stop learning. Thanks, Tandra. I love the affirmation. And Tammy says, a big one for me was not being able to say no to anyone. I love to help people, but taking a toll on me physically and emotionally. After practicing for many years and only saying yes when I really want to do something, I feel less stress. I also found out who my true friends are.
That's a great, great example.
Yeah, it is a great example for a lot of people, for the givers. You know, it's, yeah, I have a, we did this webinar on character strengths and well-being, and I took the inventory for myself after we did the webinar, and there were questions there that were like, do you respond to all people in pain or something like that? And I was like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by people in pain all the time. I can't respond to everybody, you know, like, because, so I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, when we're kind people, how do we also set boundaries? And part of self-care, not prioritizing everybody else's needs over our own, you know. And
that is a great point. I think one thing with self-care is many of us are givers and we want to help others and we give, but then we become depleted. So with self-care, it's really important to recognize that your care, physical, mental, emotional, all of you, really comes first. And if you are in a good place, if you're taking care of yourself, then you are actually able to give more fully, and you can set boundaries. You know, that's a whole other topic, but but I think that's really important.
Tammy says, yes, then the things we do choose to help with bring us so much joy.
Exactly.
So like, and that I think is a really important point. Like, part of the reason we give to other people is because it makes us feel good and we feel joyful, you know. But if you give, it's like anything that brings you joy. Like if maybe I love pizza, and if I eat one piece of pizza, it brings me joy. If I eat 4 pieces of the same pizza, like I kind of feel sick, you know. So it's like that how much of a good thing is a good thing, you know.
Exactly. Let's move to the next slide, please. This one's really fun. And also a little challenging being in a pandemic is to think of something you enjoy doing with others, right? Whether it's something you have regularly done or something you've been wanting to do but haven't had the opportunity. Thinking about those things and looking at how you can do those with yourself will allow you to learn to spend time with yourself joyfully and can be really empowering. So I will start with an example. And I don't do it regularly because, well, I'm busy and, you know, I'm not old, but I can't stay up very late anymore. But I love to dance. I love to go out dancing. I love going out with a group of friends to do that. And yet that's not a possibility right now. And so I've been dancing around my house a little bit more. So I invite you to think about things that you love to do with others, or you've been wanting to do with others, or you've had an idea. And it might also be related to the one of like something you keep to yourself. There's, ideas probably that we have that.
So Tasha wants to talk. Should we unmute her?
Yeah.
Talk. Okay, Tasha, I learned how to unmute you. So you're unmuted. You have to unmute on your end also in order to be able to speak, but. You're still mute. D, she's still muted.
Tasha, you just need to do the unmute on your screen. You should be able to speak. We can come back to it if she's having a little difficulty.
Is there somebody else who has their hand raised, or?
Not at the moment.
Well, we have some things in the chat while Tasha's figuring out how to unmute herself. That would be great. Donna says card games, camping, motorcycle riding, trips. Tammy says, haha, the first example that came to mind is that I love laughing with my daughters and we have so much fun just doing nothing. Funny thing is that I often find myself laughing alone too. Great. Tandra, I miss singing with my choir. Carolyn, learn how to square dance country music style. Maria, visit my sister, give her a hug. Rosa, I miss going shopping with my mom. Christina, I love dancing too, and since the pandemic, I've been doing dance parties with myself in my living room. Lori says, road trips are always so much fun. We share adventure and laugh so much along the way. Now with the restrictions, I miss going to movies. Elda, visiting and spending time with my sisters. Yeah, and I think the movies one is common, like it's not quite the same to, binge watch Netflix by yourself or watch a movie by yourself, but people have been doing like movie parties, like watching a movie at the same time, with each other and, bringing their popcorn, so. And I know somebody, that works with me was talking about like this exact idea you're talking about, Marisol. And she'd always this was before the pandemic, but she'd never been out to dinner by herself. And she'd never been out to the movies by herself it kind of just felt weird. But yet she felt very much like, if she didn't have anybody to go with, then she couldn't go, or that she would be looked at funny. It's related to the last one too. Like people would be judging her if she was sitting alone in a restaurant or sitting alone at the movies, like she didn't have any friends or anything. So we talked about it and she challenged herself to do exactly what you're saying, to go to the movies by herself, to go to a restaurant and have dinner by herself. And it was what you're saying, the empowerment of, wow, like, I don't need anybody to do that. Like her sister said, what are you doing today? And she said, I'm going to go to the movies. And she said, who are you going with? I'm going by myself. And just saying that to somebody else, really? You're going to go by yourself? Yeah, I'm going to go by myself,
I actually identify with that very greatly. I used to say that I had a fear of eating by myself. Even if I was out with another person and they had to go to the restroom while we were eating, it caused me a lot of discomfort to have to sit there for some time and be by myself. I don't know why, because I thought people would look at me weird, like, oh, she has no friends. She's just sitting here all lonesome. Until I had to start traveling for work, where I didn't know anybody there and I had to eat. I used to initially order room service or delivery, but staying in a hotel room is not very fun. So I had to force myself to go to restaurants and feel awkward and sit there all by myself and have a meal, like a whole entire meal by myself. And with some practice, just after a couple of times, I was like, this is actually kind of nice. Nobody's distracting me. I can read a book. I can just sit with my thoughts. And now it's actually a treat if I go to a coffee shop or go to a restaurant and I'm just with me. It's like I'm dating myself. I'm enjoying time with myself. And it's actually very relaxing and energizing. I feel like I have been able to kind of recharge, and nobody looks at me weird or asks me like, why are you by yourself? So that is an excellent example. So let's see, Dee, can we move forward, please? Now, this is where I think the framework actually gets radical, depending on how radical you want to be, is we had those 4 steps or themes or categories, and I've taken a few little notes as people have been typing, and hopefully you've been keeping track of your own ideas. And what I like to do is to take something from each of those, something I love, a certain part of the day, something I've been keeping to myself, something that I have been wanting or normally do with other people, and I pull them together, right? And this is where I have to use a little creative thinking of like, how do you even pull random things together? And I, either in my mind or I'm big with lists, writing things down, list all the ways that you can bring your pieces together. And I add on the slide without judgment, because I think our first thing initially, or for myself, is to start judging the idea, like, oh, this is stupid, or this isn't right, or I can't do that. So really, whatever comes to you, write it down. How can you combine them? Hopefully something will stand out. And I like to tell my clients to, at this part of the framework, the stages, the steps, to listen to your body, right? To, not your mind, because your mind might start to judge and tell you, no, that's not a good idea. But listen to your body and notice, are you smiling as these ideas are coming to your mind, or as you're working through combining some things? Are you smiling? Do you have any sensations in your body? Excitement? Do you have butterflies in your stomach that might be guiding you into determining what you can do? So I will give you an example. Something that I like to do, I love eating. I don't have picnics very often, but I love the idea of a picnic, right? I particularly am fond of nighttime under the moon. I love the full moon, stars when I can see them, when there's not so much air pollution. I like picnics with other people. And combining those, I have the lovely idea of like nighttime picnics, right? With myself or with other people, but for myself to, under the full moon, create myself a lovely picnic, how I would want someone to plan it for me, plan it for myself, and go out there no matter what, and just enjoy my time with myself. And so that might not be something that I would normally, I might not think of that. I have to put thought into, well, you want a picnic? Make yourself a picnic. You want to do it at night? Do it at night. Who cares? There's no rules that say picnic has to be in the park during the day on the weekend. So it's kind of like breaking through our ideas of what should be or how we should do things and making something creative.
I have one.
Yeah.
I have one, Marisol. Something I love, sitting outside, just sitting outside under the trees, listening to the beat, whatever, just like sitting outside. I've loved it since I was a little kid. Certain part of day, I already said dusk, like, the late afternoon. Something keeping to myself, like happy hour. Like I've never done happy hour without other people. Like either Zoom happy hour or going to a happy hour at a restaurant or whatever, or even with my parents, like down, it's always like with other people. So that's what doing to others, like doing with others. So why couldn't I like just at 4 o'clock or 4:30 go outside on my balcony, sit in my chair and have a drink of either wine or seltzer or something, make myself a drink and have a snack. Like, why
That
not
is,
do that?
that's wonderful. I love it.
But that's what you meant, right? I mean,
That's
what you meant,
exactly,
like,
that is exactly what I meant. So
doesn't have to be a
using
big
kind
deal.
of those ideas, and again, there's not a right way, and trying to pick little pieces to create something special just for you, right?
Okay, so I want to hear from somebody else. I want somebody to raise their hand. Unless there's a lot more to the way. Is there a lot more you have to get through, Marisol?
No, there's like two short slides. They're short.
Do we think we have time to hear from somebody? Or
Yeah, I would love to.
so who could raise their hand and play the game? Come on. Lori's not going to raise her hand, but she put it in the chat.
We have Tamara here. But then
What? Oh, Tammy's raising her hand.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
I didn't have anything big, but as you were talking, I just had this silly vision of my sitting outside at sunrise by myself laughing. And then I had the first thought, oh my God, what will the neighbors think? And that's the piece that you're trying to get at today. I have to get past that.
I think that sounds wonderful. And who cares what your neighbors think? They're gonna say, "Oh, how is she so joyful? I want some of that."
Thank you, Tammy. Thank
This
you.
has been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And Lori says, something I always wanted to do is have an early morning breakfast outside with strawberries, fresh OJ, and a beautiful breeze. And then Patty says, take a long bike ride by myself. And Jen S says, something I always wanted to do is wake up, not an easy task, and watch the sunrise and eat strawberries.
we also had Shelly here with her hands.
Shelly. Great. You have to unmute yourself, Shelly. We've unmuted you.
My bad. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. I was just saying, get up in the mornings to like enjoy the sunset. I mean, just recently I did that with my family. And it was very beautiful.
Nice.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Christine
you.
says, I'd love to do a dusk run along the river, then run through the public sprinklers to cool off under the moon and stars.
Oh, that gave me chills. I'm like, yes. That sounds amazing. It's super fun. Yeah. So you guys are getting the idea of how you can create a self-care practice, and you don't have to do it. There's always variety, right? There's always something new you can create for yourself, which this is why I love this framework, and I try to have everybody do it. Let's move forward to the next slide. Okay, so as I said, this is just a framework. It's only one way to create a self-care practice. And the beauty of this is you can make it your own, and I hope you do. And create it, you can use the themes, the categories that I've presented, but knowing yourself and only you know you, I invite you to create your own categories and include in your new practice. I do want to touch, if we can move to the next slide, on how you can do this with your family. Oh wait, put it into action. Super important. So we're doing a lot of brainstorming, a lot of ideas, and to really make it work, you have to put it into action. And so with whatever you decide, you need to make a plan. What do you need to do to make it happen? You might have to gather some supplies. You might have to, I saw somebody mention earlier in the webinar about making tent blankets, forts. So you might have to find extra blankets. Whatever you do, make an actual plan, okay? I'm huge on scheduling. You have to schedule it. When are you going to do this? Put it on your calendar, set reminders, set alarms, whatever helps you schedule it. Make it a priority, like you would work, like you would a doctor's appointment, schedule it. Sometimes the toughest part is to actually do it. So no matter what happens, because something might happen, life happens, things, you might have planned to have, I don't know, a special meal and you're without an ingredient. It's okay, you could still do it. No matter what happens, commit to this practice that you have created for yourself. I myself, sometimes it's like time to do it and I'm like, oh, I don't know, because it feels different, it's new, it's awkward, I start judging myself. If you are faced with that, where the time has come and you're trying to find reasons not to do it, a great technique is to use the 5-second countdown. So not the count up, don't count up to 5, start with 5, and in those 5 seconds that you're counting down, start getting the stuff that you need. Do it, and when you get to 1, you are in it, okay? And this is really important. You have to put your ideas into action. And I think the last slide is how to do it with your family. There you go. So using this framework, in the pandemic, a lot of us are with our family a whole lot. And I think you should include your family, not in your personal self-care, but you could do a family care practice with this framework. And again, there's not one way to do it, but a few strategies is to have each family member come up with a list of ideas for each step or each category, right? Include your kids, include your spouse, whoever lives with you, include them. You can write them down on a piece of paper or note cards, and you could randomly pick from each category. Or if you wanted to put everything in a jar and each person pick out of the jar, and then you work together to come up with ideas, which will encourage collaboration, negotiation skills, great skills for everybody to practice. And I will give you an example of this in my own house. A couple of weeks into us staying at home, my 11-year-old was like, we should play hide and seek. And I'll be honest, my very first idea was, oh, I don't want to play hide and seek, like what? Ugh. And then I allowed myself to like actually hear his request. He was asking for engagement, for fun. And I'm like, okay, how are we going to do this? We couldn't do it at that moment. So we agreed that on the weekend, we picked the day, the time we would come together and plan a family hide and seek event. So when that came, we talked about rules, how many rounds we would do, what parts of the house were on limit, off limits, like don't get in the washing machine kind of deal. And then we played the most fun game of hide and seek I have played in years and years and years. It's much harder as an adult to find hiding spots around your house, but that was a great, it was so much fun. We laughed so much. It was family time. It was limited, like I could devote that hour of my Saturday, and we were all kind of like refreshed and rejuvenated, and it helped with our, our family bonding time. So that's just one little idea of how you can use it with your family.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marisol.
Yeah.
It was great.
Thank you. Dee, if you will go to the next slide. I do invite all of you to try this framework. And if you are willing to share with me, I love to hear and see how people incorporate this. You can contact me through my website, send me an email. If you take pictures, share it with me, tag me. I would love to see how you're creating your own radical self-care practice.
Great. Fabulous. Let's go to the next slide, Dee, because we're winding up here. Remember the hashtag amplify homework and sharing on social media joy, because we want to amplify this positive energy. You want to amplify our joy. So, and be sure to tag Be Strong Families when you do that. And then also we want to invite you to join us for future webinars. Tomorrow we have Embracing Your Pioneer Spirit to Improve Your Overall Well-Being. And Kim Van Auken is awesome, and I encourage you to come to this. I know it might not seem immediately like we're all pioneers, but the idea of the pioneer spirit is important. Amplified joy. Thank you, Lori. Amplified joy. I've got that joy, joy, joy down in my heart. That's awesome. And then
That
next
is
week, we
awesome.
have a whole new series coming up with new web presenters. Monday is the role of credit and loans for navigating difficult financial situations, but difficult financial times. Because it takes a lot to stay strong and positive, and there are a lot of different fronts need to be covered. Ramon Pastrana is going to be here on Tuesday, leading us through crisis. How do you go from crisis to recovery? Chad Morris is Wednesday, talking about fathering, motivating, equipping, and empowering fathers. Michelle Lennon will be here with us on Thursday, grappling with substance use and misuse and maintaining recovery during COVID-19. And then on Friday, Aisha Boston is going to give us a homeschool mom's tips and tricks for staying organized during distance learning. So that's, and then I'm not a Spanish speaker, but we have a whole list of Spanish, Spanish webinars, and really encourage you to tell your friends and come. We would very much like to see you. So glad you enjoyed the webinar, everybody. And it will be available to listen to again if you want to remember to get the framework. Also, the PowerPoint slides are available. And please fill out the poll before you leave. Tell us how you liked it. 5 being the best, 1 being ugh. And I know we don't have any ughs. And then answer the other couple questions too. It's very helpful to us as we go forward. And feel free to drop us a line if there are topics that you'd like us to cover, or if you have something you'd like to offer for the community. This is totally volunteer. It's the community giving to each other. So feel free to drop us a line. What should that be? COVID-19 at bestrongfamilies.net or info at bestrongfamilies.net? Either one will probably do. Oh, Dee's put it in the chat. Email us at COVID-19. And yeah, let us know how we could do better. Let us know what you'd like to see. And let us know if you'd like to offer something. Big thanks to Marisol. Thank you so much for last week and this week. You've provided so much helpful information and such a great spirit of how to engage with these times. So
Thank you. It's been an actual joy to join you guys.
I'm thinking of coaching. I should get Marisol to coach me. I wonder if anybody else in the group, she's available, essentially.
I'm available.
She's available. So thank you so much, Marisol. And thank you everybody for being here and for participating. It was a really robust, great chat today. So thank you so much for your participation, and we'll see you next. Lots of love. Done? It's 1:01, so
Awesome.
I'm gonna sign off. Thank you, Marisol.
Thank you. That was fun.
Thank you all.
Bye.
All right. Bye.